Welcome to Bounce Back Stronger, the podcast that explores ways to find peace and purpose no matter what happens. I'm your host, Donna Ferris, and today's episode shines a vital light on the experiences and needs of transgender individuals, particularly during a period of heightened cultural and governmental discrimination. Joining us are two incredible moms and advocates. Andrea Rashbaum, a dedicated teacher for 25 years, co-founder of a transgender parent support group, and the mother of an adult transgender woman, and Maureen Ross Gemme, a personality consultant, leadership trainer, and mother to a transgender neurodiverse adult child. And I am also mother to a neurodiverse transgender woman. Together, we'll share our stories, wisdom, and insights into supporting the transgender community while navigating our journeys as mothers and advocates. I thought we might want to start off with a few definitions just to be helpful for those that are newer to the subject. Let's just look at gender and sex, and then we'll bring everybody in for questions. A person's gender is how they identify internally and how they express this externally. People may use clothing, appearances, and behaviors to express the gender that they identify with. The World Health Organization notes that gender is a social construction that people typically describe in terms of femininity and masculinity. In Western cultures, people often associate femininity with women and masculinity with men, but this social construct varies across cultures. However, gender is not neatly divided along the binary lines of man and woman, and we can talk about that maybe a little bit later. A person's sex is typically based on certain biological factors, such as their reproductive organs, genes, and hormones. Like gender, sex is not binary. A person may have the genes that people may associate with being male or female, but their reproductive organs, genitals, and or both may look different. This is called differences in sex development. People may also refer to differences in sex development as intersex. People typically use the terms male, female, or intersex to refer to sex, but that is somewhat up to discussion. So I did want to just start off there because that's one of the things that we kind of run into early in talking about this subject is what is the difference between gender and sex. So I wanted to get the definition out there. Any thoughts about that before we go into the questions?
It's sometimes really convoluted, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because not everybody is on the same page with what it all means. And they, in my experience, negate gender. That doesn't matter. What you have between your legs, they say, is what you are. And it's like, wait a minute, slow down. So it is different for a lot of people, and it's hard to explain, especially to older generations who just really don't get it. And we all know that everybody is basically born like female, and then they develop that male genitalia. And yet my I'm going to just call him my kid right now, even though he's an adult. My kid was born female, had 4 children, and then trans male, right? And considers himself non-binary and can go both ways. But I'll tell you, it's just respectful to identify him the way he wants to be talked about.
yes, agreed. And those range of gender identities are quite wide. I'm just reading, and there's like cisgender, which is a person whose gender identity matches the sex. And then here's others, non-binary, person who doesn't identify exclusively as male or female, as you mentioned, Maureen. Gender fluid, agender, gender queer, bigender, two-spirit, which I love, an umbrella term for a variety of genders and sexualities in indigenous Native American
Oh,
communities, which I loved because I'm doing a lot of reading in that culture. Omnigender and polygender. So anybody that you know that has had a child recently, if you think about how we program them down this pink or blue, I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. I'm
yeah.
wearing blue. I'm already a rebel.
I'm a blue girl too. My
Well,
walls are blue, my car is blue. My
exactly.
Well, I was going to recommend a book that I always recommend when I do trainings is The Gender Agenda. And it shows how socialized we are about gender. And it started out as a blog in England with a male and female couple who wanted to raise their male and female children in a genderless world. And they
Mm,
soon found out how impossible it was. And just little things that came up that their kids went to school, their kids were with aunts and uncles, their kids were with family friends. And I think it's an amazing book, The Gender Agenda, because it's short, it's in blog form, and you could see everything that they're talking about, how we socially construct gender.
yeah,
I'm
for sure.
familiar with that book.
Are
And I
you?
remember even when my kids were having their children, they didn't want to identify as gender either. But it is, and in our culture, our language, the American or English language, we at least like think about the Spanish language and the French and some of these others. A lot of their words are feminine and masculine. Like amiga and amigo. You can't. There's not a neutral word for friend, and it's a real. I think it's
Mm,
an issue. Like, why can't we just be people? Can we just be people?
Right, right.
yeah. And we feel that even more recently, right, with what's been going on. Can we just take a minute maybe to talk about how that's affected our kids?
You mean like the change in administration? Oh yeah.
I think we want to hit on the feelings, right? That, however you may feel about this administration, to come out quickly, so just black and white about it is just been
Well,
hard
I
for our communities, right?
I think part of it is everything came out lightning speed, from
Yes.
the gate, from the get-go. And while people expected this administration to try to influence people's idea of gender and maybe roll back some policies, I know I didn't think it was going to happen in the inauguration speech on Inauguration Day.
Yeah.
And from a parent perspective, because I co-founded a parent support group, I have had parents calling me nonstop. What do you think I should do? Can my child still get gender affirming hormones? Are their passports going to be changed? Are they going to have
Yep.
to roll back documents where my child has her name for 14 years already? How can we roll back such a document? She is an adult. I would hope she could still get her gender affirming hormones, but where kids are concerned, I worry. And when we first I say we, we all went through the
we all
transition.
we all
It's
transitioned
a
together.
journey. We all go through a
Oh my God.
transition.
What
But
we
when we
learned.
first went through the journey, because she was 10 and she's 24 now, it was really hard to even find doctors who
Yeah.
would help her with gender affirming hormones. And now we have those doctors. But what we found with friends in other states where Department of Family Services were being called in on parents to take
Mm.
children away. And I
Oh,
think that's a real fear again. And we had to carry around what was called a safe folder. And we had documentation from therapists, endocrinologists, general practitioner. We had articles that were medical reviews that being transgender was a real thing,
mm.
that transgender people often had dysphoria. And I worry that people are going to have to go back to safe folders, and they worry that DFS is going to be called.
And where do you live, Andrea?
I live in Delaware. It is considered safe, but is it safe from federal regulations, federal laws, and executive orders? That
Yeah.
time will tell.
I'm in Connecticut, and we also consider ourselves in a safe state. So that's good. And Donna, where are you?
We're in Pennsylvania. I don't know if we're safe.
No, I don't
I would
know.
think not. So I think that's something that we're seeing, right? We're seeing people trying to move, sometimes countries. We've seen some of that, but also really trying to get to what they consider safe states. But as you said, we're not quite sure that they're even safe. Let's talk a little bit about pronouns. So, why are pronouns so important? I've had this happen to me a lot. Like when I have my she, her underneath my name, people will question it. Anybody want to take that? Why you think that's so important to make sure we get the pronouns right? And then also as people that are cisgender to use those pronouns as well and make that statement, which I do not have here on this Zoom, but most Zooms I have it underneath.
I think number one, it's about respect,
Yeah.
respecting how somebody identifies and wants to be called. And it's as basic as someone's name. You want to be called the right name. My name's Andrea. I get called Andrea, all kinds of things. And I know when people take the time to actually ask me, they're showing me a respect. And it's the same with pronouns. I get frustrated. People say, well, I'm too old. I can't learn pronouns now. We're always learning new words. There's hybrid now. You go to work in a hybrid atmosphere. Google used to be a noun and now it's a verb. I Google that. So we're always learning new words, and people don't say, oh, I'm too old to learn the word Google or hybrid. So why can't you do new pronouns?
I think that was really well said, Andrea, because names are important, right? You need to be respectful. And then the other thing I just want to say that I really liked what you said is when you say to somebody, I'm going to use a guy's name, his name is Robert. Would you call me Robert? And then everybody's disrespectfully calling him Bob and Bobby or Robbie or Rob or whatever. It's not right. I don't care who you are. And honestly, the kids are very forgiving. They're not like, you're
No,
doing
they
it
are. They are.
again. They're
No,
very
they really are.
forgiving.
I just wanted to give a tip to people out there who are trying to work with new names and work with new pronouns, which we tell our parents all the time. Immediately put it in your phone and
Mm,
put their pronouns next to their name. So every single time it pops up, that's the name you see. And for grandparents who may not see these kids as often as parents, we tell them to put sticky notes around their house. My
yeah,
granddaughter's name is whoever and her pronouns are, and just that visual helps people remember.
yeah. That's
Great
very good.
idea.
Very good. Why don't we turn to bathroom access, which was really what I thought we were going to be talking about a lot because when this all kind of started in November with the election, right away we had your representative, who you probably know, Andrea, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Sarah McBride.
And I
Yes.
know her very well. She actually
Oh, good.
transitioned the same year as Maddie,
Wow. Okay.
but they're 10 years apart.
God
Yeah.
bless her
But
for being in the fire limelight right now. It's hard.
yeah, and immediately they made a big deal about bathrooms and I don't know about you, but that was probably one of my biggest fears for my child. I was very concerned about her having to go into a men's bathroom, and I was thankful that she was welcomed into the women's bathroom and that our high school had a neutral bathroom that everybody could go to, a family bathroom, as they call them. What do you think about this? For me, I don't want anybody to feel unsafe in a bathroom, but of all of the folks in this, our kids are targets too. I guess it just was so hard to watch that because my heart broke for Sarah and all of the kids that are facing this.
Yeah, it's a really hard issue, and I don't know why. I don't freaking get it. Nobody has ever harassed me in a bathroom. I'm in a
No,
stall. I don't understand why it's such a big deal for everyone. First of
I
all,
don't either.
transgender people are the least confrontative. They're not going to go in and do anything to anybody else in the bathroom,
Yeah.
right? But we worry about their safety.
Yeah.
But I would be more scared for my son to be going into the men's room that
Yes.
might get bullied or harassed by men than any woman is going to harass. And it could happen for sure. My, daughter-in-law, who is now called Aria, she just confidently walks right in and goes, and nobody ever questions it. So I just don't see what the big deal is. Everybody just go to the bathroom, mind your own freaking business, and get out.
Stop looking around. Like, why does anybody look around? Like, what
No,
is,
it's none of your business who's in there. Do your duty and go.
literally do your duty. I like it.
The funny thing about Sarah to me is this all happened, of course, the first week. She was in training. She wasn't
Yeah,
even
she
in
wasn't even in
progress
there.
yet. She
Yeah,
was
exactly.
in training. And what the first thing in my mind was she was
Okay,
in our state Congress for 4 years before this without incident in any bathroom. So this is just a ploy
it is.
to make an issue about this because there was no incident in the bathroom. And when my daughter transitioned, of course, there were no protections, and she was transitioning in the 5th grade. And they told us that if she used the bathroom, the female bathroom, she would be suspended, that she could only use the nurse's bathroom. Well, she was literally on one corner of the school.
Oh
And
no.
I'm a teacher, and the bathroom was on the far corner of the school, and it would have been a 7-minute walk every single time she wanted to go to the bathroom, which round trip is 14 minutes. Well, in education, we talk about minutes in instruction and not losing instructional time, and they were okay with her losing 14 minutes every time she had to go to the bathroom. And it was funny because she was only 10 years old. And she
Mm.
said to me, "Why does the principal think the building is going to explode when I go into the bathroom?" And of course, like
From the mouth to
Sarah,
I love that
babes.
so much.
isn't it funny?
Oh
And
my God.
like Sarah, she'd been going to the bathroom for 4 years in that school without incident.
Right?
So why all of a sudden that she was transitioning, she was going to attack people or something? It was so bizarre to me. And she thought it
Yes.
was bizarre too.
Oh, that's heartbreaking in a way. I mean, but thank God she has the right mental state to
Yeah.
kind of withstand that.
Yeah.
Thanks to you, I'm sure, and your
Oh,
husband. Why has this become such an issue? And I think it's because everybody seems to be able to somehow agree on it, that it's not them, because I think that's what it is. It's a wedge to make us be more apart from each other on something that's really a very personal journey that that our children are going through. Yeah.
So this is why I don't understand why people are so worried about it. And especially for kids who really know right from the get-go that they were born in the wrong body. It's got to be really hard. Like
it is.
yours, Andrea, how old were they when they knew?
2. She didn't transition till 10, mostly because of society.
Right.
Wow.
It was
Yeah,
because of
because of peer
society.
pressure. Yeah.
And when she turned 5, the children in her daycare told her, "You're a boy, you're a boy. You can't dress in butterfly wings anymore." And it was fine when she was 3 and 4. But when she went into kindergarten, it suddenly wasn't fine anymore. And in
School.
3rd grade, she actually cut her hair very short. And she started wearing boy things, and she started playing soccer. And we kept saying to her, "Are you sure you want to do this? Cut your hair, play soccer?" "Yes, I want to do this." And then, of course, she got depressed. And we knew
Mm.
she had to transition.
Oh,
And finally, at 10 years old, she transitioned, but it was hard.
But she had
yeah.
to play who she's not in
Yes.
order to figure out who she really is. And you
Yes.
were very supportive. So that's awesome.
We tried, but it's not always easy.
It
Yeah.
isn't. It isn't.
And how old was yours, Donna?
She began at age 17, so
Okay.
she was older at that point. One of the other things that comes up, and I'm just made me think of it. One of the other things that comes up, which I think is an interesting thing for people to understand, that there's a relationship with neurodiversity and transgender, and the stats that I have is 25% of gender diverse people have autism as compared to 5% of cisgender people. And neurodiverse people are, in general, 8 times more likely to be asexual.
Oh my
So,
God. So my son fits all of those. He does, we want to be called like, I don't have autism. I am autistic. And it doesn't matter if there's a spectrum, I'm autistic. And also ADHD.
mhm.
And so when I went to one of these research facilities and got them tested, they tested like 5%. Like most people will answer these questions, these certain set of questions, 95% will answer them this way. And he got in the 5%. Like he is off the charts, thinks differently. And it was really hard. I had to beg him to graduate high school because they didn't care. They're not motivated by any external rewards or anything. They're not, they're different.
Which makes you wonder, right? If that's why it's so easy for them or easier for them to see that this is something that they are.
Oh yeah.
Whereas everybody else is kind of social, it's a social construct that they're not able to see it, or they're unwilling to make the leap. So anyway, I think it's something I've always kind of noodled about, but it is something that comes up. So if you run into that as a parent, don't be surprised that that's a thing. What are some unique challenges or joys? Because there's a lot of joy here. Like, for example, for me, I'll say one of my favorite things is that I got married almost 5 years ago, and that was about the time that my daughter was going through her transition. So we got to change our names on our social security cards together. We got to change our names on our driver's license together. I don't think many parents get that opportunity, really. So there was some fun things like that we got to do. How about you all?
I mean, I feel privileged that I went through this journey because you don't know what you can handle
Mm,
until something comes along. And we made mistakes like anybody would, and we had hiccups like anybody would. But I feel privileged that we were able to go through this with her and try to make her life as comfortable as possible. As I said earlier, and I think it's important for parents to know this, everyone's on a journey with whoever's transitioning. It could be teachers, it could be parents, it could be siblings, it could be friends, right? We're all on this journey of learning new names and learning new pronouns and watching how our trans children transform.
yeah.
And I remember when Maddie first transitioned, I had seen a friend 2 months later. Maddie was with me, and my friend said she walks more confidently now.
Hmm.
She
Yep.
walks, and
They're happier.
she was just happier. Now, of
Hmm.
course, there's a lot of fear as a parent, and we all have fear as parents, but there is a very real fear of danger because we know that there's a lot of violence against the transgender community. So there's definitely a lot of fear, but when your child looks happier, of course you're going to be happier.
That's awesome. I think there have been a lot of joys. First off, me and my husband are kind of like old school hippies. So we always told her weird is okay. You can be whoever you are. But I did not know he was the one who self identified as autistic. And even when they were going through trying to figure out who they were attracted to and sexuality and all of that, I kept saying, oh, the labels, try not to get into the labels. But honestly, they have been my biggest teacher in this life.
Hmm.
Even though I was the one that said, it's all okay. Like they had their hair every color that could ever be had. As soon as they were 18, there was piercings and a tattoo. And they did graduate high school for us because we begged them. But honestly, then suddenly they were just being the stay-at-home parent, having babies, and they did life their way. And so I've learned to completely let go. It is not my life. I just get to be the benefactor of all these awesome children. And they are so freaking brilliant now because they get people. And I'm so proud of the person that they've become because now they're working in a school for mentally disabled and challenged individuals with all kinds of labels, and they love it. They are
Yeah.
so good at it. And then they go home to 4 kids. So it's just amazing to me, and still having a good attitude and not worrying about what other people think. And it's really amazing. So there's so many joys I can't even begin. And one of the joys too has been meeting people like you, Donna. And Andrea, I'm thinking, I want to join your group. Is it on Zoom?
Join, come
Come
join.
join us. Come join us.
I'll get you
I
on
agree
the
with that.
email list. I will say, Donna, that one difficulty of having a transgender teenager or kid is, and I hear it all the time, and I knew it from firsthand experience, you wonder what's teenager and what's transgender. And
Yes,
even though it's one kid, it's a little bit challenging sometimes because our kids need boundaries. And
they
often
do.
when I train educators, they say, so your kid's supposed to get away with everything? No, they need boundaries. They also need respect and affirmation, but they do need boundaries.
That's right. That's right. That's a really good point. You don't want to indulge it, I guess is the word
Yeah.
I'm looking for. Yeah, I agree. What?
I'm glad I'm past it. That's all I can say. I'm glad I'm
Um,
past it.
You were lucky, Maureen.
so
I don't know.
I'm just looking at time. There's two questions, I guess. What are the biggest misconceptions about your children and maybe even about yourself? I actually have gotten misgendered when I'm with my daughter. It was really interesting. And it was meant to be a slam to me because they were giving a slam to my kid. But
Oh,
yeah, but I'm just be curious, what are the biggest misconceptions you think that people have about our children from your experience?
I think with younger children, it's they can't know their gender yet.
okay.
And with
Mm,
teenagers, it's, oh, it's a phase.
yes.
And with anybody, it's, oh, this is a fad and everybody wants to do it now. I did one training where a teacher said, do you think this is happening because there's more tablets now? And so people want to get on this train? And I said, no, I don't think so.
Statistics say no, actually, right?
No,
I mean,
no.
that was the thing for me when somebody told me and showed me the stat that
Yeah,
actually most of the time when they start to identify as non-binary, they go to the other sex,
yeah,
and it stays. It's not a phase. Because
no,
and I was like, yeah, it's not a phase, folks.
When
yeah.
I first saw my daughter-in-law being a woman, it was hard for me. One of my very first thoughts, because it's called denial. It's
Yeah,
just like part of the grief process. It's like,
that's right.
oh, I hope this is just a phase, that kind of thing. And it's ridiculous. What man would ever do that? And honestly, as soon as I got past that, which is like a day, it didn't take long. It's hard. They're going to go through a lot of difficulties in society to do this kind of transition. It takes a lot of courage
It
and a
does.
lot of bravery to come out as who you really are. So it doesn't matter what age you are, because my kids transitioned when they were 31 and 30, two, like, and it's working. Their family is fine. The kids are fine. But they also come up against resistance from other parents.
What advice would you give to other parents and how we can be better allies for this community, especially in this time?
But one thing I tell allies in particular is pay attention to your local elections. Pay attention
Yeah.
to school board and local mayor and local councils. And honestly, what I do is I email each person that's running and I say, can you give me a quick list of your agenda? And you could tell right away who the allies are and who you don't want in these positions. And
Oh, that's
it's
really smart.
really important because do you want gender affirming policies? Do you want respect to whoever in the community might be LGBTQ? As for parents, I would say listen to your children when they tell you because they're being serious. And especially for young kids, we always followed the rule of if your child is persistent, insistent, and consistent. And that was something we were told by the doctors, which our child was. So it was very easy to tell. And sometimes people say that isn't a good way to look at it anymore. But just because your child wasn't doing that at 5 years old doesn't mean when they're doing that at 13 years old, it isn't real because it is
Hmm.
if they're
Hmm.
insistent, consistent, and persistent.
Or
Mm,
didn't
I
do
love
it
that.
for the first 30 years and then they do it. But
Right.
honestly, looking back, there's so many telltale signs. There's so
Yeah.
many. But I appreciate that advice. I'm going to take it to heart too, because I'm still trying to figure it out.
I think
And
it
I
just
talk about it, and I'm not afraid to talk about it. And I want people to know that I'm safe. You can come to me and talk about it if you're going through whatever you're going through with your
yeah.
family. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so, so much. Andrea, we'll make sure that we have the information about your organization, which I highly recommend. I really have gained a lot from participating, and thank you so much for doing that.
We
And
started with 16 families, and that was 8 years ago, and we have over 300 now.
Wow.
It's a real thing, folks.
it's not a phase.
No.
It's not a
Not a
phase.
fad.
Not a fad. Well, thank you so, so much. I really appreciate your time and all you do to support this community.
Thanks
Thank
for putting
you.
the focus
Thank you
on
for
it, Donna.
doing this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really
Thank,
is great that we're talking about it.
yeah, it just feels good to talk about it, doesn't it?
Yes,
They're not,
it does.
everybody knows they're not alone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really important. All right. Thank you. That's all for today. If you want to learn more about our guests, those links will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. If it was, please subscribe, drop a review, and share it with your friends and family. That's the best way to get it in the hands of those who may benefit. And if my daughters Sienna and Sylvia are listening, I want you to know how proud I am of you. And I love you so, so much. Bye now.